What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and we have a nice slate of NBA games tomorrow. I guess in observance of Election Day, the NBA decided to not have games today, which is fine. But I figured I didn't want to do college basketball just yet because I literally just play the spreads, so it has nothing to do with the teams. I can look for some suspicious lines and post them, but I figured last year we did phenomenally well just waiting for teams to go about 0 and 4, 0 and 5 against the spread, vice versa, and then starting to take those lines. So we're only a couple games into the season. But anyway, for the NBA, between the fact we don't have a ton of plays going on because obviously college starts a little bit later in the week. Our Monday game's over. We got that for a change, which is a rarity, I would say, to get the freaking Chargers on a prime time. A lot of times they do the opposite. But we actually got them against the Cowboys. We've been getting the Chargers a lot better than some other teams this year. And yeah, I think it just made more sense. So anyway, I want to go into, it was a nice way to end the week. We had a leg 3 for 4 units. We only had 2 of them. The other one was the Cowboys, so at least we broke even. So tonight's games, tomorrow's games, usually it's a little later when I do these, closer to after midnight, but a couple of them, again, I have certain teams that I think are going to do well, make the playoffs, play in, and then there's other theories that I look at too, but it doesn't mean that's going to hold true for every single game. Now that being said, for example, the Wizards and Hornets, I have both of those teams making the play-in. So it doesn't mean, even if I had one and the other one I didn't, I'm not going to make every pick off of that stance. So anyway, I do like the Hornets for the cover. I don't think the public's going to believe in them just yet completely. And while the Wizards aren't great themselves, I think they really do want to establish the Hornets as a feisty group. They can make the play-in with this roster, in my opinion. The Wizards are probably a piece away. I think JP is going to have a good year. Again, I still have them getting like the 10 seed. I'm still going to stick by him. It's early in the year. But it's just, I think the Hornets, especially at home, the money's probably not going to be a lot of money on either side. So I like the Hornets here. There's a couple over-unders I like too. I'll go into them in a minute. Jazz, Pacers, I like the Pacers for the cover. I went into this, again, in my rankings video. I just think that the Pacers are going to essentially do what the Cavaliers did last year, where people don't really expect them to, but they get close to 50 wins. I think they'll be a top 3-4 seed in the East, and I think they're going to do a lot better than people anticipate with the way they're treating Mather and Halliburton, Healed. A lot of these guys, they're just being treated well, so not sure the public's on them yet anyway, so I'll take them to cover the 6.5. I also don't have the Jazz doing anything this year. I think they traded away any draw that they might have, so I think they're going to be a bottom dweller anyway. So I like the Pacers for the cover. Celtics, Sixers. This one I went back and forth on because the Sixers are undefeated against the spread, and you know how I feel about that logic. So instead of making it a big play, I just made it for 1 unit. I do have the Sixers covering. I actually have them winning. The cover would probably be safe. But I'll go into it in a second. I like the Sixers because, again, I just don't think there's going to be that many people on them. I think people are looking at the Harden trade, and they're not looking at the fact that, again, it's scripted for 1. But for 2, the players they got would, theoretically, improve that team. You have a lazy guy who doesn't care, who got traded away, and then you bring in guys like Batum, who are just, he's going to, complement Harris very well. So I'm not even sure. I'm sure they're playing by now. I haven't, to be honest, I didn't watch basketball really over the weekend. But even without him, I just think more money is going to be on Boston. And it just seems like a trap to me. This one's going to have a lot of money on it. So I like the Sixers here to win this game. And next, again, this is the logic I'll typically use. I do have the Clippers covering the Nets. Because like the Sixers, the Nets are the only other team undefeated against the spread. They're like 6-0 at this point. So I think that drops. And again, there's going to be teams that get off to a strong start against the spread. But typically by the next game or two, I would imagine all these teams would be no longer winless or undefeated. on the spread. So I like the Nets, or the Clippers, I'm sorry, the Clippers to cover the Nets. And we got the Sixers beating the Celtics. Spurs, Knicks. I can't imagine they're going to keep paying out these 9-point spreads for the Spurs. They got the Suns twice. I think they got somebody else. And 9.5 is pretty steep. So I looked at the injuries. Johnson's out for the Spurs. Knicks have no injuries. Of course, they lie about injuries. They'll say a guy is on his deathbed. Next thing you know, he's looking like DeMar Hamlin, who's suiting up, ready to go. So you never know. But I do think that the Knicks are going to cover because, again, I don't think they're going to keep paying out the Spurs. And I think they're going to make a narrative here because Mitch Robinson's been looking even stronger than last year. This also brings me into the foul calls, the lack of thereof, I should say, with LeBron James. I'm not saying this means I'm right, but I did go into earlier this year how I think they're going to try and emulate the 90s with the big men, the physicality, the grittiness, and we're seeing a lot of chippiness. Robinson, if you look at the Lopez on the Bucks, if you look at Chet, we're seeing a lot of block shots this year. Wemby, obviously. So we're seeing a lot of things that we weren't really seeing before. Block shots, contact at the hoop not getting called. So I think that's going to continue. And again, it's probably just a way to scapegoat the officials, but it happens all the time. Whether they call fouls they shouldn't or they don't call fouls they should. Of course, it usually goes unquestioned, but now LeBron's making, they're probably telling him to, but making a big stink of it. So almost 10 points. I don't see too many people on the Knicks here. And I do think that this will be a game that Wemby is sort of brought to reality. Now, he hasn't gone nuts, but he's had some really good games. He's had his way. A guy like Mitch Robinson, they switch Randall on him. I think they can give him some havoc. So I think they'll make the Knicks look really strong in this game and cover. I like the Bulls here. It's basically a pick 'em. It's been swinging for a bit now. So you could take the 1 point. You could take the cover. I think this is one, I personally have it in a parlay, which I'm going to go into. But I like the Bulls. Even with the injured stars, again, the Suns still have a pretty stacked team. Even their average guys like Nurk are pretty good. And then obviously, anytime you got KD, you're good. The Bulls, I don't think they're doing much with them this year, but I still think... I thought one of these super teams was going to get off to a slow start. We knew the Lakers probably would. But then I was looking at the Bucks and the Suns, and I thought of one of those teams, one of them is probably going to get off to a slower start. It's looking like it's going to be the Suns, and it fits the narrative because the narrative is they have no depth outside of the stars, and if they get hurt, what do? So, between the line being a little weird, I think the public just loves the Suns. I'm going to take the Bulls. And speaking of weird lines, we have another one. Lakers, and I didn't pick this game. It was during football. It was Saturday or Sunday, but I did notice it. I noticed the Magic were playing the Lakers again. Last time they played, we took the Magic with the points. I said I thought it'd be like a 2-point game. It was a 3-point game. Then the Magic, I think they did lose to the Clippers. I can't remember. And then the Lakers again, 3 points against the Magic just the other day. I get even if Davis is out or LeBron's not playing, but they still have a deep enough team. Reeves is probably better than any player on the Magic, including Banchero, so it made no sense. To me, this makes no sense. 2.5, I like the Rockets. And, again, I think it's... Even if you look at their best player, Jabari's good, Jalen Green's good. I don't think it matches up against the Lakers' theoretical roster. And Davis is game-time decision, so... This line is with the chance he might even play. I have a feeling he's not going to play, which will explain why the Rockets win. Last year, if you remember, after the Mavericks blamed the officiating for their loss against the Warriors, they went on to lose like 10 games or something. Of their next 10 games, they probably won one of them. They lost 2 in a row to the Bobcats. So I'm not saying it's definitely going to repeat itself, but I could see the Lakers losing this. LeBron kind of complaining. And them continuing the narrative. So, I'll take the Rockets. Heat, Grizzlies. This one, I went back and forth on, to be honest, just because I could see it going both ways between these teams' records against the spread and just how they've looked this year. Very inconsistent from a lot of perspectives. But at the end of the day, I do lean Heat just because, again, without Ja, I don't think they're going to do much with the the Grizzlies this year. I just don't see it happening. So you might have more money on the Grizzlies, sure, but I like the Heat here. I think they're gonna finally get it done. And like I said, you might have more money on Miami, but even still, the Grizzlies' record against the spread isn't even as bad as the Heat's. So I like the Heat. Now this one, you might say Vegas might not pay it out, and you're probably right. But I like the Pistons to win. The Bucks have had hiccups this year, and they've been against teams that haven't been that good, where they've barely won or lost. So I could definitely see another hiccup here. The Pistons beating them in Milwaukee would definitely be. I think the Pistons are going to do better this year than people think, and just compound with the fact that I still think if people are going for upsets, they're going to go for the Blazers down here. They're probably going to go for the Spurs. I don't think they're taking the Pistons. So I like the Pistons straight up for the money line. T-Wolves, I like them to cover the Pelicans. They have been winning a couple of games decisively, I noticed lately. But I don't know if a few decisive wins is going to have people taking them to beat the Pelicans minus 7.5. Pelicans are missing Herb, Alvarado. They still got Zion. They still got B.I. They still have enough that I think warrants it being closer. So with a suspicious spread, I'll take the T-Wolves to cover the 7.5. Cavs, Thunder. I do like the Thunder. I thought about taking the Cavs because while I like the Thunder, and if you watch my rankings video, I think the Cavaliers are going to fall off hard this year. It's still Donovan Mitchell. You still have guys they want to push. They'd both be 4-4. But at the end of the day, it's an 82-game season, and I think they're going to just push the Thunder as an actual playoff team this year. I like the points because I could see it being a overtime or a 1-point game, 2-point game. So I definitely like the points here with the Thunder getting the 2.5. Next one, I like the Raptors getting the 5.5. Now, this year, Luka has been doing a better job of covering. Last year, he was selling a lot of spreads, and it was really obvious. This year, that hasn't happened too much, but I still think it's a shady line. Only 5.5 on the road. So, I think more money is going to be on Dallas for sure. I wouldn't be shocked if they upset them, but at the least, I think the Raptors are going to cover. Nuggets, I like to cover because undefeated at home this year. I think they run that narrative a little bit longer, basically solidifying it's essentially impossible to win in Denver, let alone in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be, they might not cover, but I'm going to go ahead and assume they do. Not assume they do, but I think they will, so I'm going to go with the cover. And this one's a contingency game, Spurs, Knicks. As you know, a lot of times I like to split these up because typically you're not going to have both away teams or both home teams win. So I try and look for the most probable two, so like the odds of losing these both. Not that we can't, I just think it's unlikely. So anyway, I like the Nuggets for the cover. And finally, I like the Kings to cover because I think it's high. They haven't looked that great this year. The Blazers have been upsetting people. Like I said, this one I can see people taking as an upset. So I like the Kings here, given the 8.5 points. And like I said, I have quite a bit here, and I just wanted to, this way, it's a little jumbled, I get it, it's Discord, but it's the best way for me to show exactly how they're mostly all one units. The few extras I have are, as you can see, I have the Wizards, Hornets under. Both teams have gone over almost every game this year. Now, I made it a leg one because 241.5 is a lot. So, people might see that and automatically take the under, so public money will always affect things. So, I'm going to go ahead and just tread lightly with a leg one. And like most of our sequences that we've opened over the last couple days, we've closed anyway, which is good. Obviously, we had some leg threes that we lost. We won a couple, but once I close out a sequence, then we're opening new ones. So that's the good thing is we don't want to be on leg two, leg threes on a bunch of them, just because that's only if we didn't close the sequence already. So most of these are leg ones. If you watch my prior videos, you know what I mean. Leg one, leg two, leg three, 1 unit, 2 units, 4 units. So yeah, I got the Sixers winning straight up. That's going to be slightly plus odds, but not that much. Like I went into Pacers. I like the under. We got the Hornets covering, like I said, Rockets. These are all leg ones. That's going to be a win, by the way. I specifically took the points here, though, with the Thunder, because, again, I think it'll be a 1-2 point game. Heat's a pick 'em, so I got them winning. Again, we're getting about 5-1 here for the Pistons to win, so I like that. And for the T-Wolves, and Raptors here to cover both leg ones. So everything I just went over, just wanted to show you the unit increments. Now here are our leg twos. Well, we got a few more. Sorry, this is another under that we got. Jazz, Pacers under, same thing. They've gone over a ton this year, but I don't like the fact that it's set so high. Public might see that and just take the under. Kind of like USC in college, they go over so much they'll set it at 76. People will probably take the under on that. So I'm not saying it's always going to happen, but I do think that more often than not, and that's not absurdly high. Most basketball totals are at least 230 these days, so 244 is nothing crazy. And then we got our last leg one, Kings covering the Blazers. Now I got the Knicks covering the Spurs as a leg two, and it's right here as you can see. If the Knicks do not cover the Spurs, so that would mean we lost that leg two. We're going to play the Nuggets cover the Warriors as a leg three for 4 units. If the Knicks do cover the Spurs, then we're simply going to play the Nuggets cover as only a leg two. Again, this is because I want to close open sequences, so if we have a couple leg twos, then I want to close one of them. But if Knicks do cover the Spurs, then worst case, we're only going to have this one heading to a leg three, this Clippers cover Nets, Bulls beat Suns parlay. You're looking at regular parlay odds here, so over 2-1, between 2 and 3-1. But that'll be its own leg too. But yeah, if we get the Knicks cover, then we're going to play the Nuggets cover as just a leg two. If we don't, we're going to double down, make it a leg three for 4 units, and hope that we split the ESPN doubleheader. We split them every time this year except once, which not great. We want to go 2 for 0 one of these times, but they've all been splits. We had one 0-2 night, so I'm going to play with the odds and assume that we'll at least split them, which would be nice. And this would be a nice parlay to hit. I thought it was a good 2 to combine. Again, Nets have not been covered all year. I think that changes. I think more money will still be on the Suns, so I like these 2 teams in a parlay. So I like to show exactly what unit amounts we're going to be playing them as and what increments. So again, we only have a couple leg twos. We have those couple over unders, but they're leg ones. And should the Knicks not cover, we'll play the Nuggets to cover as a leg three for 4 units. So hopefully we have a good night. I think we will. Again, I say that all the time, but coming off a good win, which is nice. We had a great start to, again, this happened Saturday and Sunday. Really good starts, and then just rough finishes, like missing the 4 o'clock games or missing the late games with college. And then our leg threes just not splitting like normal, so we missed them a couple in a row. Again, it was nice to get back to Chargers cover. That was a leg three. So hopefully that continues. Hopefully we don't need to play a leg three. Hopefully the Spurs get covered handedly. But if not, we will just play the Nuggets leg three. And I assume they'll keep the narrative up that they're going to be unstoppable at home. So I'll be going into college basketball. I'm really looking forward to college basketball. It's just going to be waiting for a few games to happen so we can look at the spreads. So take care, everybody, and happy earnings.